If you're always available, you start becoming invisible. Let's get honest for a moment. Have you ever felt like the more you give of yourself, the less people actually value what you offer? It's a strange paradox, right? We're taught that being accessible, being reachable, being always on somehow means we're more loving, more useful, more successful. That the more you say yes, the more you'll be liked. The more you show up, the more you'll be respected. The more you sacrifice, the more they'll see your worth. But here's the truth. No one tells you until it's too late. If you're always available, you start becoming invisible. Your presence starts to blur into the background. Your voice starts to fade. Your identity starts to dissolve, not because others don't care, but because you've taught them that your energy has no boundary. And here's what's worse. You forget how to show up for yourself. Let me share something that changed my life. I remember a season where I was saying yes to everything: meetings, calls, favors, helping friends, showing up to every event, even when I was mentally depleted. I convinced myself I was being generous. But the truth? I was being used, not maliciously, but mindlessly, and I let it happen. Because deep down, I didn't want to be seen as selfish. I didn't want to disappoint anyone. But in trying to be everything to everyone, I became nothing to myself. You see, society glorifies hustle. It glamorizes being busy. It romanticizes burnout as a badge of honor. But let me say this clearly. Being constantly available is not a flex, it's a leak. You leak focus. You leak joy. You leak time. You leak identity. Availability without intention is a silent killer of self-worth. People will take as much of you as you give them. That's not cruelty, that's just human nature. If you don't define your value, the world will define it for you, and usually they'll undervalue it. That's why we need to rewrite this story. Because being valuable isn't about always saying yes. It's about knowing when to say yes and why you're saying it. It's about being present, not constant. Let's take a deeper look at this myth. We've been conditioned to believe that showing up for everyone, answering every message, being at every event, responding immediately is a sign of love and reliability. But that kind of availability creates dependency, not connection. It trains people to expect access, not to appreciate presence. And the scariest part, it trains you to betray yourself. Every time you answer a call, you didn't have energy for. Every time you attend a gathering just to keep someone else happy. Every time you abandon your own peace to maintain appearances, you tell your inner self you come last. And after a while, that becomes your identity. So let me ask you something vulnerable. How much of your time is spent in reaction? How many of your decisions are driven by obligation? How many of your yeses are rooted in fear? Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of being misunderstood? Because that fear, if left unchecked, will shape your whole life. And here's the truth. I had to learn the hard way. You can't build a powerful life if you're always living in response to someone else's needs. You can't hear your purpose if you're drowning in noise. You can't follow your inner calling if your calendar is ruled by guilt. You can't grow if you're too tired from constantly being available to everyone except yourself. Now let's flip the script. Imagine if on Mint, instead of being everywhere, you were anchored. Instead of being constantly reachable, you were rare. Instead of being driven by obligation, you were led by intention. What would that feel like? Maybe Kita, maybe lonelier at first, but I promise it would feel more like you. And that's what this journey is about. It's not about becoming harder to reach just to prove something. It's about becoming harder to drain so you can finally become who you were born to be. People who are truly valuable, their time feels sacred. Their presence shifts the room, not because they speak louder or show up more, but because their energy isn't scattered, it's centered. Let me be clear. This is not about arrogance. This is about alignment. You don't have to become cold, but you do have to become clear. You don't have to shut everyone out, but you do have to shut distractions out. And that starts with a radical shift. Stop making your value dependent on your availability. You were not created to be an open door for everyone else's chaos. You were created to live with purpose, with precision, with power. And power doesn't beg. Power doesn't explain. Power simply moves with intention. So I want to leave you with this. What would your life look like if you stopped living in reaction and started living in rhythm? What would change if you chose value over visibility? Would your mornings feel different? Would your boundaries get clearer? Would your soul start to breathe again? Start small. Say no once this week to something that doesn't serve your peace. Create 1 hour of time that belongs to no one but you. Put your phone on silent and listen to your own thoughts, even if it's uncomfortable. You don't need to justify your peace. You need to honor it. SEODA. If this spoke to something inside you, let me know in the comments, how are you reclaiming your time? Like, share, and subscribe if you're serious about choosing alignment over exhaustion. And most of all, thank you for being part of this journey. Your growth matters. Your energy matters. And I'm honored to walk alongside you. You are not valuable because you're busy. You are valuable because you are becoming. Let's clear something up. There's a dangerous belief that's quietly controlling too many lives, and maybe it's been running yours without you even knowing it. Busy means important. Accessible means loved. Overcommitted means respected. But let me tell you the truth, not the one the world sells you, but the one your soul already knows. You are not valuable because you are busy. You are valuable because you are becoming wise, becoming whole, becoming aligned, becoming unavailable to anything that cheapens your energy. And that transformation doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you start redefining what value really means. We've been taught that to be valuable, we have to do more, give more, be more for others. But true value has nothing to do with how much of yourself you give away. True value is measured by how rooted you are in who you are, how unshakable your energy becomes in a world addicted to chaos. Let me explain it this way. Imagine you own a luxury watch. It doesn't buzz every time someone texts. It's not trying to get your attention. It's not shouting, "Hey, look at me." It simply exists in excellence. It doesn't need to announce its worth. It just island. Now contrast that with your phone beeping, pinging, flashing all day, constantly grabbing your attention. The watch is silent, but it's worth more. And in the same way, you don't become valuable by being loud, accessible, or overextended. You become valuable when you protect your energy, when you stop responding out of guilt, when you start living from a place of purpose, not performance. Here's what I want you to hear today. Value is not proven through your availability. It is preserved through your boundaries. Let's talk about that word, boundaries. Some people hear that and think walls, but that's a misunderstanding. Boundaries are not about shutting people out. They're about honoring what's sacred within you. Think of your boundaries like the frame around a masterpiece. You're not protecting the frame, you're protecting the art inside. And that art is your time, your peace, your mission, your energy. And you know what? Not everyone deserves unlimited access to that. Not every text deserves a reply. Not every invitation deserves a yes. Not every person gets a front row seat to your revolution. Because here's the thing, every yes is a trade. Every time you say yes to someone else's urgency, you may be saying no to your own healing. Every time you say yes to a meeting that drains you, you say no to the creative time your dream is starving for. Every yes has a price. And too many of us are going broke, not financially, but emotionally, because we don't know how to protect our energy. So what do? We draw the line. We stop proving our worth through overgiving. We stop apologizing for needing space. We stop letting guilt run our schedule, because real value is not in how much you give. It's in how intentionally you give. It's not in how many people like you. It's in how deeply you're living your truth. Let me share something deeply personal. There was a time in my life where I thought boundaries would make me look selfish. That saying no would make me seem arrogant, that if I didn't show up for everyone, I wasn't being kind. But what I realized was this: unfiltered kindness can become self-destruction. When you give without limits, you start erasing yourself. And that's not compassion, that's collapse. You are not here to be a martyr for everyone else's convenience. You're here to become someone powerful, purposeful, and grounded. And to do that, you've got to make peace with being misunderstood. Yes, people will say you've changed. Yes, they'll think you're distant. Yes, some will fall off the map when you stop bending over backwards. Let them, because your value doesn't decrease when they don't understand your boundaries. It increases because now you're living from alignment, not approval. That's what maturity looks like. Maturity is saying, I can't make it today, and I don't need to explain why. This doesn't serve me right now, and that's enough. My peace matters more than your perception of me. Because the people who truly love you, they won't punish your progress. They'll adjust to it. They'll respect the new you that's rising, even if it means less access, less availability, and more, no, not today. And here's something you need to hear, not just with your ears, but with your identity. You're allowed to be unavailable. You're allowed to be unavailable while you're healing. You're allowed to be unavailable while you're building. You're allowed to be unavailable while you're finding clarity again. This isn't you pulling away out of ego. This is you pulling inward to reclaim your power. So next time you feel guilty for not picking up the phone, ask yourself, am I being unavailable to them or finally becoming available to me? Let me say that again. Am I being unavailable to them or finally becoming available to me? You've spent enough years answering everyone else's call. Now it's time to start answering your own. And that call, it's whispering, protect your peace, guard your energy, say no to what drains you so you can say yes to what shapes you. Because you weren't put on this earth to please everyone. You were put here to walk in purpose, to live in rhythm with your truth, to align with something greater than distractions and demands. You are not here to be a 24/7 emotional support system. You are not here to be constantly reachable. You are here to become powerfully rare. So the next time someone says, you've changed, smile and say, yes, I finally started treating myself like I matter. Every time you say yes without thinking, you're saying no to something sacred. Let me ask you something that might hit close to home. How many times have you said yes when every part of your body wanted to say no? You knew you were tired. You knew it would cost your peace. You knew it would pull you away from what actually matters. But still, you said yes. Why? Because we've been taught to associate accessibility with value. We believe if we're always reachable, we're always relevant. If we're always helpful, we're always loved. If we're always agreeable, we're always accepted. But let's break that illusion right now. Every yes that isn't aligned costs you. And the cost isn't always obvious. It's subtle. It's cumulative. It looks like waking up exhausted, even after 8 hours of sleep, feeling uninspired, even when you're busy, losing focus, even though you're surrounded by opportunity, growing bitter, even though you're always helping. That's not a coincidence. That's the cost of unconscious accessibility. Let me explain this from the neuroscience perspective. Your brain has something called decision fatigue. The more decisions you make in a day, the less clarity you have for the ones that actually matter. So every time you say yes out of guilt, every time you agree to one more meeting, one more favor, one more obligation that doesn't align, you're burning precious cognitive fuel, the very energy your brain needs to build, to create, to transform. So what happens? You lose clarity. You lose focus. You lose momentum. And eventually you lose yourself. You end up drained, not because you're lazy, but because your energy has been leaking through 1,000 unguarded yeses. Let me say it clearly. Being accessible is not the same as being valuable. In fact, the more accessible you are to everything, the less valuable you become to anything. Because value is built through intention, through presence, through focus, not through scattered commitments and reactive living. Let me share a moment from my own life. Years ago, when I first started building my platform, I thought I had to be everywhere for everyone, reply to every message, accept every podcast, say yes to every speaking engagement. I was saying yes to so many things. I wasn't saying yes to the right things. And do you know what that led to? Burnout, frustration, resentment. I was working so hard trying to serve everyone that I was neglecting the very mission that got me started in the first place. You see, sometimes the things that distract you the most don't look like distractions. They look like opportunities. They look like friendships. They look like urgent tasks that make you feel productive. But underneath it all, they're just noise. And here's the truth. Noise kills momentum. You can't grow if you're constantly reacting. You can't evolve if your schedule is owned by other people's expectations. You can't walk in purpose if you're trapped in people pleasing. So here's a shift I want you to make today. Stop measuring your value by how many things you're involved in. Start measuring your value by how many things you've eliminated that don't serve you. Because every yes has a hidden no. When you say yes to their drama, you say no to your peace. When you say yes to their timeline, you say no to your pace. When you say yes to fitting in, you say no to standing out. That's the hidden cost of yes. You start living someone else's life. You start chasing someone else's dream. You start becoming someone you don't even recognize anymore. And the scariest part, they might be happy, but you're hollow. So I want to challenge you with this. Start using your yes like currency, because that's exactly what it island. Your time is your most valuable investment. Your energy is your rarest asset. And your focus, that's your secret weapon. Don't spend those things on relationships, tasks, or habits that won't pay you back in growth, clarity, or joy. Let me give you a practical reframe. Before saying yes to anything, ask yourself 3 questions. Does this align with the person I'm becoming? Will this bring me closer to my purpose or pull me further from it? Would future me thank me for this decision? If the answer is no, then the answer is no. And let me be clear, you don't have to say no with shame. You say no with peace. You say no because your energy is not infinite. You say no because you're building something sacred. You say no because every no to distraction is a yes to destiny. And guess what? The people who truly love you, they won't guilt you. They'll respect you. They'll understand that your growth might make you less available, but it makes you more powerful, because growth doesn't mean being everywhere. It means being rooted in the few things that matter most. That's the mindset shift. You stop asking, what am I allowed to say no to? And you start asking, what is truly worth my yes? And when you live from that place, something incredible happens. Your yes becomes sacred. Your presence becomes magnetic. Your schedule becomes a reflection of your values, not your fears. And here's the final truth I want to leave you with. The world doesn't need more busy people. It needs more aligned people. People who say yes when they mean it. People who show up from overflow, not obligation. People who understand that availability doesn't equal impact. You want to build something that lasts. Start by protecting your yes like it's gold, because it's island. You don't need to be louder. You need to be clearer, because clarity is louder than noise. Let's talk about one of the most invisible prisons we live in. It's not built with bars or chains. It's not something anyone else forces on us. It's the pressure to please, to smile when we're tired, to say yes when we want to say no, to keep the peace, even if it costs our purpose, to shrink ourselves just to fit into spaces we've already outgrown. And it's subtle. It starts as wanting to be liked, but over time, it becomes the reason we lose ourselves. So let me say this clearly. Pleasing people is not the same as having peace with people. In fact, most of the time when you're trying to make everyone happy, the person you forget about is you. But here's what I've learned. There's a moment in your journey where the volume of the world gets so loud, opinions, expectations, obligations, that the only way to hear yourself again is to go quiet, to pull back, to go still, to shift silently from pleasing to purpose. And that shift, it changes everything. You stop chasing approval. You stop seeking applause. You stop needing permission to be you, because you realize that being liked is not the goal. Being aligned island. Let me take you back to when I first started on this path. I used to believe that being kind meant being available, that if someone asked for help, I had to give it, that if someone needed my energy, I had to show up, that if I didn't, I wasn't being a good person. But over time, I realized something painful. I was using kindness as a disguise for self-abandonment. I wasn't showing up from love, I was showing up from fear. Fear of being seen as selfish. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of disappointing people who were used to me being on call 24/7s. And the truth is, I was disappointing someone. Myself. And here's the lesson I want you to take in today. You cannot build a meaningful life on the foundation of other people's expectations because their expectations shift, their moods change, their needs evolve. And if you keep bending every time the wind blows, you'll never be rooted in your own truth. You'll keep waking up in a version of your life that looks good from the outside, but feels hollow on the inside. That's why this shift from people pleasing to purpose living must be intentional. And most importantly, it has to happen in silence. You don't need to post a manifesto. You don't need to explain your every boundary. You don't need to announce your evolution. You just need to walk in it. Let me repeat that. You don't need to announce your revolution. Just walk in it. You don't owe anyone an explanation for prioritizing your peace. And here's why the shift has to be quiet. Because when you stop pleasing everyone, some people are going to get uncomfortable. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're distant. They'll say you think you're better now. And when they say that, I want you to remember this. You're not distant. You're disciplined. You're not cold. You're clear. You're not selfish. You're sacred. The people who are only attached to your availability will always feel threatened by your alignment. Let them. You don't have to dim your clarity so others feel comfortable in their confusion. You don't have to slow your growth so they don't feel left behind. Because this shift is not about them. It's about you, your evolution, your calling, your soul. And when you stop performing for approval, you start producing from alignment. You move differently. You speak with more precision. You take action, not out of fear, but from a place of calm purpose. That's where the power island. Now let's get practical. Here are 3 silent shifts you can make starting today. 1, shift from reaction to reflection. Instead of immediately responding to requests, pause, reflect, ask, does this align with who I'm becoming? Sometimes the most powerful move isn't saying yes or no, it's taking a breath before you respond. 2, shift from obligation to intention. Don't do things just because you've always done them. Don't go just because you're invited. Don't engage just because you're expected. Ask, is this rooted in love or fear? 3, shift from pleasing to prioritizing. Start placing your dreams on the calendar like appointments. Treat your peace like a non-negotiable. Protect your energy like it's the currency that funds your future because it island. And remember, silence doesn't mean absence. You're not disappearing. You're realigning. You're creating the space to listen to your intuition. You're calling your truth. You're becoming less reactive, more responsive, less scattered, more strategic, less pleasing, more purposeful. So when someone asks, why aren't you as available as you used to be? Smile and say, because I'm not who I used to be. That's the quiet revolution. And the people meant for your future, they'll honor your silence. They'll respect your distance. They'll support your clarity. You're not abandoning people. You're refusing to abandon yourself. And that's not selfish. That's sacred. Every time you grow, something will fall off. Let it. Let's be honest. We all say we want to grow. We post the quotes. We buy the books. We say things like, I'm on my healing journey, or I'm focused on becoming my best self. But let's talk about the part nobody tells you. The side of growth we rarely discuss. Real growth creates real separation. And that separation hurts. It's not loud. It's not dramatic, but it is deeply personal because it's not just about what you gain. It's about what you have to let go of. You lose habits. You lose patterns. Sometimes you lose people, not because you're angry, not because you stopped caring, but because you're no longer available to the version of yourself who used to accept less. That's the price of elevation. See, we've romanticized growth. We make it look beautiful. Yoga poses, meditation apps, clean spaces, organized calendars. But true elevation is lonely. True elevation is quiet. True elevation is that moment when you're staring at your phone, realizing you can't text that person anymore, not because they're bad, but because they no longer align with where you're going. And in that moment, you grieve. not just for them, but for the old you who used to need them. Let me say this gently but clearly. You cannot become your future self while clinging to your past relationships. You can't fly if you keep holding onto the branch. And here's what I've learned. Not everyone who started with you is meant to stay with you. Some people were chapters, not the whole book. Some people were lesson, not lifetime partners. Some people were mirrors of who you used to be, not companions for who you're becoming. And the moment you stop apologizing for evolving is the moment you step fully into your power. I remember a time when I was afraid to grow because I knew it meant I'd have to distance myself from the people I loved. And maybe you're there right now. Maybe you feel guilty for outgrowing the friendships that revolve around gossip instead of growth. Maybe you're afraid to pull away from the relationship where your peace is constantly negotiated. Maybe you're still holding space for people who don't show up unless they need something. Listen to me carefully. Let them go with love, but let them go. Because if you don't release what's beneath you, you won't rise to what's ahead of you. Elevation requires separation, not out of ego, but out of evolution. Think about nature. When a snake grows, it sheds its skin. When a tree grows, it loses old leaves. When a bird matures, it leaves the nest. Everything in nature understands this principle. You don't rise by holding on. You rise by letting go. But here's where it gets even deeper. When you start separating yourself from the noise, from the distractions, from the emotional pull of everyone else's chaos, you don't just find peace. You find clarity. Clarity about who you are. Clarity about what you deserve. Clarity about what no longer fits your frequency. Because you can't hear your soul in a room full of noise. And most people aren't afraid of being alone. They're afraid of hearing the truth that silence will reveal. But I'll tell you, this silence isn't rejection. Silence is sacred alignment. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable at first. You'll second guess yourself. You'll question if you're doing the right thing. You'll feel the pull to go back to what's familiar, even if it's unhealthy. But that discomfort, that's the stretching. That's the reshaping of your identity. That's the tension between who you've been and who you're becoming. And if you can sit through it, if you can let the separation happen without rushing to fill the space, you'll find something extraordinary. You didn't lose anything. You gained yourself. You gained your mornings back. You gained your peace back. You gained the mental clarity to stop reacting and start building. But let me warn you, people will notice your shift. They'll say you're distant. They'll say you're acting brand new. They'll say you've changed. And you know what? You've changed your priorities. You've changed your values. You've changed your boundaries. And those who are attached to the old version of you won't know how to handle the new you. Let them adjust or let them exit. You're not being cold. You're being called. You're being called to stop showing up for everything that makes you small. To stop overextending for people who never pour back into you. To stop giving everyone front row seats in your life just because they've always been there. Let me say this clearly. Your evolution is not up for group discussion. Your boundary don't need votes. Your solitude doesn't need approval. Your elevation doesn't need permission. You are allowed to grow even if it makes others uncomfortable. You are allowed to walk away even if they don't understand. You are allowed to rise even if it means standing alone for a season. Because this is your life. This is your legacy. And you don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your peace. So if you feel distance forming, let it. If the invitations stop coming, accept it. If certain people fall away as you get clearer, bless them. Because when you're deeply rooted in purpose, proximity doesn't define connection. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is love people from afar. Not everyone can go where you're going. And that's not rejection, that's refinement. You're not meant to carry the weight of relationships that resist your transformation. You're meant to walk freely into the next season of your life. So let the separation happen. It's not a punishment, it's preparation. Energy is your most sacred currency. Spend it like your legacy depends on it, because it does. There's something you need to understand if you're serious about transformation. Your life doesn't just run on time. Your life runs on energy. Time is what you measure, but energy is what you feel. And when your energy is off, everything is off: your focus, your peace, your relationships, your creativity. That's why we need to stop treating our energy like it's unlimited, because it's not. You can always make more money. You can always reschedule an appointment. You can even gain back lost time through better planning. But when your energy is gone, when your mental clarity is scattered, your spirit is drained, your soul is tired, that's not something you can just replace overnight. That takes rebuilding. That takes rest. That takes intentional living. So let's talk about this concept, the energy economy. What does that mean? It means this: every thought, every conversation, every environment, every scroll, every yes you give, it's either an energy deposit or an energy withdrawal. And the problem is, most people are overdrafting. They're pouring energy into people who don't respect their time. They're answering calls that serve no purpose. They're giving emotional labor to chaos, drama, and gossip, and wondering why they feel so heavy all the time. Let me be clear: being tired isn't always about doing too much. Sometimes it's about doing too much of what doesn't matter. You're not burnt out because you're weak. You're burnt out because you've been living reactively, not intentionally. Here's what I want you to do: start treating your energy like currency. You wouldn't hand your credit card to every person who walks by, right? You wouldn't let strangers make purchases on your account without asking, would you? So why do you let anyone spend your energy without permission? Why do you allow toxic conversations to run unchecked? Why do you keep showing up in spaces where you're drained, not developed? Why do you stay loyal to obligations that don't align with your growth? Every time you say yes out of guilt, you're spending energy that should be going to your dream. And the cost: clarity, momentum, self-respect. Let me ask you something real. If you audited your last 7 days, where did your energy go? How many hours were spent on your phone, scrolling for distraction instead of insight? How many conversations left you feeling heavy instead of inspired? How many decisions were made out of fear, not from values? Because the truth is, your life is a direct reflection of how you spend your energy. You can't pray for peace while feeding chaos. You can't seek purpose while giving your best hours to distractions. You can't create transformation in your life while staying accessible to everything that tries to pull you back. So here's the mindset shift. You don't need more time. You need more direction. You don't need more hours in the day. You need more boundaries in your energy. When you live intentionally, you realize that not everything deserves a response. Not every emotion needs to be reacted to. Not every opportunity is aligned. Not every call should be answered. And this is not about arrogance. This is about stewardship, because your energy is sacred. Let me give you a simple framework I use in my own life. I call it protect, pour, préserve. 1. Protect your mornings. Your morning energy is your foundation. Before you give the world your focus, give it to your mind, your breath, your purpose. Don't let chaos in before you've even centered yourself. If the first thing you do in the morning is check your phone, you've already handed your energy to someone else's priorities. 2. Pour intentionally. When you give your energy, pour it with purpose. Show up fully or don't show up at all. Be present with your family. Be focused in your work. Be mindful in your routines. And when you notice yourself pouring into places that never pour back, pull back. 3. Preserve your nights. Your evening energy should be sacred. That's your time to reflect, to rest, to reconnect with your why. Stop ending your day with overstimulation. End it with intention. And most importantly, guard your energy from emotional thieves. Who are the emotional thieves? The ones who only call when they need something. The ones who thrive on your chaos. The ones who feel threatened when you pull back. The ones who expect your presence but never value it. You don't need to argue. You don't need to fight. You don't need to explain. You just need to decide that your energy is no longer available for those who don't honor it. And when you do, everything changes. Suddenly, your clarity returns. Your focus sharpens. Your relationships deepen because now you're showing up from overflow, not depletion. You stop living on edge and start living in rhythm. You stop reacting and start responding from alignment. Because here's the truth, most people miss. Energy doesn't lie. You can fake a smile. You can fake interest. You can even fake being okay. But your energy always tells the truth. And when you're constantly overextended, constantly overcommitted, constantly overwhelmed, people feel it. Your presence becomes scattered. Your voice loses conviction. Your creativity dims. But when you're living with intention, when your energy is guarded, directed, and renewed, your presence speaks before you say a word. You walk into a room and people feel something different. Not because you're trying to impress, but because you're living within a congruence. And that is value. So let me ask you, what's been robbing your energy lately? What's been costing you more than it gives? What needs to go? Not because it's bad, but because it's no longer aligned. You don't need to hate something to release it. You just need to love your future more than you fear the discomfort of letting go. So from this moment forward, stop treating your energy like it's unlimited. Stop apologizing for protecting your peace. Stop confusing constant motion with meaningful direction. Because the most successful people, they're not always the smartest. They're not always the loudest, but they are masters of energy stewardship. They know when to pour, when to pause, and when to preserve. And you can be that too. The old you was surviving. The new you is ready to lead, but you can't rise until you release. Let's end where most people never even begin. With the version of you that no longer belongs in your future, not the enemies, not the exes, not the distractions. No, this time, I'm talking about you. The version of you that keeps saying yes when it means no. The version that overcommits out of guilt, that performs to be accepted, that chases validation, confuses exhaustion for progress, and wears burnout like it's a badge of honor. You've outgrown that version. You know it. But knowing isn't enough. At some point, you've got to decide, I will no longer be available to the version of me that's comfortable being small. And yes, that's a hard decision because the old you is familiar, predictable, safe. But safe doesn't lead to greatness. Familiar doesn't lead to freedom. You're not stuck because you're incapable. You're stuck because you keep negotiating with the version of you that's addicted to being liked more than being aligned. Let me say that again. The old you would rather be liked. The new you would rather be free. That's the shift. And it's a quiet one. You won't announce it. You'll just move differently. You'll start saying no without guilt. You'll start blocking out time without apology. You'll stop being the emotional safety net for people who never show up for you. You'll stop explaining your silence. Because now, your silence is your strength. Let me share something deeply personal. There was a time in my life when I was addicted to being the good guy, the nice one, the reliable one, the one who never let anyone down. But behind the smiles, I was drowning. Not because life was too hard, but because I had made myself too available for everyone except me. I was saying yes to everything except my peace. Yes to everyone except my calling. Yes to every request and no to the internal whisper of, Jay, you need to stop. It wasn't until I became unavailable to the old me that I finally began to build the new me. And you can too. But hear me, this won't come easy. When you stop playing the role people assigned you, they'll get uncomfortable. They'll question your silence. They'll guilt you for creating distance. They'll say, you've changed. And your answer? I had to. Staying the same was costing me everything. Because every day you stay in alignment with the old you, you're stealing from your future. The future version of you, the one who's focused, fulfilled, and fearless, is waiting on you to stop explaining your peace to people committed to misunderstanding it. You're not here to be reachable. You're here to be remarkable. And remarkable people, they are selective with their time, with their energy, with their presence, because they've learned you can't change the world if you're available to every notification. You can't lead a new life while staying loyal to old patterns. You can't elevate if you're still entertaining energy that keeps you small. So let me ask you the most important question of this entire journey. What version of you do you need to become unavailable to starting now? Is it the people pleaser, the overthinker, the one who keeps over explaining boundaries, the one who's addicted to approval and allergic to stillness? That version of you served a purpose once. It helped you survive. But now it's stopping you from becoming who you're meant to be. And here's the hardest part. Sometimes we don't let go of the old self because we're scared there won't be anything left. But listen closely. Every time you let go of who you're not, you make space for who you are. And who you are, you're powerful, you're disciplined, you're clear, you're here for something real. So what does it look like to become unavailable to the old you? It looks like not replying to guilt-based texts, saying no without adding a nervous laugh or apology, canceling plans that drain your soul, and replacing them with solitude that restores you, guarding your mornings like they're the fuel for your legacy, ending conversations that go nowhere, logging off to log into your inner wisdom, your focus, your vision. It looks like moving with intention, not rushing to post, not needing to prove, just being rooted, steady, sovereign, because real power doesn't chase. It doesn't explain. It doesn't beg for space. It commands it silently, consistently, relentlessly. And the world will notice not because you're louder, but because you're clearer. Clarity is always louder than noise. Let them misunderstand you. Let them whisper. Let them label your silence as selfishness. You don't owe the old version of your life any more time. You don't owe your younger self an apology for choosing growth, because the old you was fighting to survive. The new you is ready to lead. But you can't rise until you release. So from this moment forward, you are unavailable for energy that costs your peace. You are unavailable for cycles that drain and distract. You are unavailable for conversations that shrink your self-worth. You are unavailable for approval that requires you to abandon your authenticity. You are available only for alignment, for elevation, for love that builds, for spaces that honor, for decisions that serve your future, not your fear. And when you live from that place, you don't just protect your energy, you amplify it. You become so grounded that the world begins to adjust to you. Because now, you're not moving to be seen. You're moving because you see clearly you are no longer available to be drained. You are no longer available to be distracted. You are no longer available to play small so others stay comfortable. You're here to lead your life. And that begins with this simple truth. You are valuable, and you no longer have to be available to prove it.